In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we speak to Thomas. We talk about how AI helps in employee experience. It's a very inspiring podcast. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, the show where we discover the truth behind contemporary HR. I'm your host, Benjamin. Join me as I unfold today's talent ecosystem with HR innovators from around the globe. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm very much looking forward to my guest today, Thomas. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Benjamin, for inviting me, and nice being here. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Me too indeed. We had an amazing conversation already around employee experience. Thomas, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you?
Just in a nutshell, it's quite hard when you think about it, how long you're in the market. So it's more than 20 years, but I'm a more senior, experienced HR leader, currently working for a Chinese company called Jingdong. I'll give you more introduction to this, but originally I have a legal background, worked as qualified lawyer, joined then a logistic company for 8 years before I had the pleasure helping Amazon, 10 years in the international growth. And so I'm based in Germany, as you can hear, with a slight German accent, but main expert in employee relations, with international experience and 20 years working experience.
Lovely.
Otherwise, I'm married and have two kids, 18-year-old son and an 8-year-old Labrador, and I'm married and live in the New York Cologne.
Cool, Thomas. You mentioned you have a background in the legal space. What motivated you to join HR, to join the people space?
I loved studying law. It's such a diverse program to study, and you touch so many areas of real life, and you understand how many things are regulated and how you can help. In my case, when I finished law and has joined CMS law firm, helping companies and taking decisions and providing legal expertise. I've done this for 5 years, and it was a great learning experience in one of the best HR or employment law teams. But the downside is you come in as an expert for a single case, for a single decision, for a single project, in many cases related to cost optimization, sometimes with negative projects or impact for employees. And this was not really satisfying. And I wanted to control and help companies in improving the entire process. So just not one single incident, but rather driving the entire process, and so somehow influence life of many more in a positive way. So and that was one of the reasons why I gave up my legal career and joined one of the companies in the HR department.
Was it a big step for you back then? Since it's actually quite a good firm you were working at, and quite good future there probably.
Well, it depends. You would have gone. And of course, we had very interesting clients, and I'm not entitled to talk about names, but it's like huge industries, and you also have challenging projects where you can learn and grow, and you can also develop the legal framework in a country. But again, it's limited to a country, and it's not driving necessarily the entire process. So joining a company has the benefit that you can really own and influence internal stakeholders to take the right decisions. The downside was in a way that you have, of course, different stakeholders, so many more, and to convince your HR colleagues, you have internal communications, you've got your board of directors and so on. Also sometimes it takes longer to convince about doing the right thing, not doing things which are legally right. Yes, you can do many things, but doing the right thing is something different, which you need much more data points and reasons. But that's the joy. The rewarding is that you have a satisfying workforce that you see, and you got a feeling of improving lives of many, versus just giving a legal expertise. So I never regretted that choice. I just selected a different path which fits more to my nature.
Then you went into logistics, right?
Yes, it was at the time called TNT Express, a originally Dutch-based logistic company with 50,000 people. We had 5,000 in Germany with 30 different branches, Works Council, Center Works Council, a great academy, and many other elements. And I had a good mentor at that time, Jürgen, who was HR director or managing director of the company. And I learned a lot and could help him and the team as employment and HR manager to build good relationship to works councils, to improve in terms of working conditions with all the teams, and we maintain a good culture. So unfortunately, after 7 years, we struggled a bit with the economic crash 2009, 2010, and there were some other operational challenges. Hence, I then decided to leave 2012, 2013 to join Amazon, which was at the time still small but growing e-commerce company with great opportunity, which demonstrated to be true. So yeah, I left then after 7 years, but I've been still in touch with many of my old colleagues who merged later on with FedEx, and many admire the culture we had established at the time there.
That's actually my next question. So it's actually quite interesting. You went from a very large law firm to an organization that is, of course, much larger, and then well, with lots of frontline workers, deskless workers, and then you went to a, well, now enormous, one of the largest companies on the globe. So how were these? How did you experience those moves culturally? So how did it change you? What kind of experience was very useful for you then when you joined your new roles?
I had the privilege to learn from 4 different cultures in my career. So the one you mentioned with the law firm, and then TNT is kind of German-Dutch company, very similar to what I experienced before. So the Dutch company, the German company, pretty similar. The move to Amazon was a cultural change. It took me long to understand, not from a German perspective. I, of course, knew the European landscape and could explain this very well. But I had to learn that there are complete different perceptions from American perspective. That I remember, like, also phrases like "we are in war with," like you wouldn't understand as a German, and it took me long to understand, not to convince and find reasons for my strategy and approach in Germany and Europe and how we improve, but also to understand why they are thinking that way, and what they have experienced, which environment they're operating in as a head office based in Seattle, United States, with a complete different free economy and so on. And then from that base to explain and build anchors and bridges to explain our position. That was a challenging time. It was, of course, economic-wise and in terms of employee engagement, HR, quite a success story, even not perceived outside the company so well. It took me also much longer there. But it was interesting internally to see the differences, how different economies operate different.
Well, in an environment that was like growing massively, and you're now in an environment that also has like a tremendous growth, how does one keep up with these developments when you see so much changing and that there's so much growth everywhere? How do you keep track? How do you keep up with the developments?
Yeah, I mean, we follow the business strategy. It's always in a way of HR, and then we influence in the direction we need to go. And sometimes when those businesses grow, you have to take priorities and have a clear understanding what is reasonable to make the balanced decisions. For example, at Amazon, there was a desire to grow fast, to build this network and to sustain all jobs and be successful in the long run. So there was a huge investment into all the operational warehousing, for example, and technologies and the buildings that didn't allow at certain times to invest heavily in only employees, right? So of course we had to balance how you spend your investments, and in that respect, it was always like a challenge to argue with the business to take the right investments in people, but also for us as HR to understand, okay, business growth is equally important to sustain jobs. So key priorities, key balance. I experience the same now as well in a Chinese company, equal international growth expectations, and also demonstrated in the past 6 months. But maybe with a different cultural background and also different willingness, depending on the shareholders' interests and so on. But for Amazon, I can say I think it was right. We could push enough for getting step by step all working conditions improved. We have had salary increases, investment in careers, multiple things, which might have, and understand from a company perspective, not available when you start up a company, when you ramp up the business growth like they've done in the first year. So it all comes as its time, what is affordable to companies, and also based on the competitors and the markets you operate in.
From your perspective, what makes companies successful?
But there's, of course, you need excellent product or service to be successful in the market. But, and that is one side of the coin, most of it is not only technology, it's not only products, it's also the way it's presented, the way it's developed, the way it's designed. So that's normally done by people. So you need a good idea and product, but also you need a good workforce who's fully engaged in driving this market growth, brand growth, whatever you name it, whatever the product is. You cannot just focus on a strong product like Apple, for example, right? I mean, Steve Jobs created multiple good products, but he only was successful because he hired the right people and had the right mindset and gave them the environment to be successful. It was not a visionary, a good, strong leader, but also a working environment where people can grow and can develop and can innovate and can also fail. So you need both equally.
Well, you know what I find interesting? Whenever I talk to people from companies that experience a lot of growth, I hear answers like that. And when I talk to company representatives of companies that, where growth is perhaps not experienced every day, that goes through several struggles, you hear other stories like, okay, well, HR should have a different function. Why does not every company adopt this mentality that, okay, we need a great product, however, at the same time, we need amazing people who advance our company, and one can see from the past 20 years. So many companies stuck to old habits, stuck with an old mindset, and then couldn't grow as others could, despite having very similar starting points. And I'm always wondering, so this mentality of, hey, we need amazing people to advance our products, why is this mentality not at every company?
It's a very good question. I mean, companies are also, on the one hand, legal entities, but only persist on their leaders, right? And
Exactly.
That might be a learning also for business leaders. And we see more and more, and there's a stronger focus more and more on those people topics, sometimes in a negative way, like the current discussion about sickness in Germany, for example, with reducing the sickness benefits, blaming the employees to be responsible for. But I think the future and many developments will help us. The future will be 4 different dimensions. The one is if I may just give you a little bit of background to this, but the one is, I think, the globalization, the global growth revolution we will see. And it's not just like us in the company I'm working for now, which is JD.com, an e-commerce digital technology company from China with 600,000 people. But I think I experienced this at Amazon, I experienced this with the 2 years I was with Vipro IT company. We will see a global workforce. This is not local anymore. There is a desire by educated employees to work in international environment. And I can tell you from my own experience, my son is 18, he's turning 19 now. This generation Z, or this young generations, they're totally international. I mean, not them being like at school at different countries in US and so on, but also when they finish matric, they go work and travel, go around the globe. They have international networks. They are globally connected. And this will continue. And we see this trend already with workforce where they desire and request international teams. I've been working with Vipro where we had our main workforce in India, 250,000 in total, 200,000 in India. We had international teams. So we were not working national, we were thinking international. We had our shared service center in Romania, right? At Amazon, we were building warehouses in Poland and Czech to support the German market. We were also like international, super international. JD.com, my team is now located across the globe. So this is a kind of norm, and we will use and leverage workforces from all regions and to the benefit of them as well. I mean, salary levels and everything else will increase, but we will not see this as a local workforce anymore. That will contradict some developments we've seen most recently. Mark Zuckerberg made a concern release that they will go away from the diversity policies. Amazon renewed or didn't publish. We see Google doing the same, which I think is wrong. I think working international, and then my learning with America, as explained earlier, was to understand the other side's perception on perspective, and the same was with our Indian colleagues, where certain direct communication was not so much appreciated, and there was lack of kind of level thinking because of their history. And China, again, it's more like the collective team approach and so on. So there are certain things we need to learn from each other, but the future will be international workforce. And we should not hire local, it's global. We have global talents. I think that's one thing where automatically those old management behavior will be outdated. The second and even stronger argument is that we will see the need, if you want to be economically successful, to look into employee experience engagement, right? I mean, Gallup, you know, Gallup is a most well-known platform to do those surveys, discover those 8.8 trillion impact of disengagement or lack of engagement into the world economy, which is, I think, 650 billion for Europe. It's tremendous numbers, and I've seen it in all companies. There are hard factors where you can easily measure, which you obviously see then attendance, so the willingness on overtime on certain shifts or sickness or other parameters. Sometimes you can't see it in the level of innovation, the level of quality of productivity, but it can be all measured. And this is, there must be an economic reason to do the right things. You will have a competitive advantage, and it's not just like a nice thing by Steve Jobs and it's maybe his vision, but it's also economically successful. And not only, I mean, he has proven it like many others did. And so when you have this focus on not only product but also people and providing this, they will positively influence the development of new products, quality, service, and whatever. And so you have a higher revenue, but you also need to kind of invest in that respect. So have the right policy, have the recognition programs, career development. So there's a lot of things you need to do, but there's a high return of invest. The third thing, despite globalization of workforce, despite employee experience and the need to look into this, and it's not like a a wishful thinking. It is kind of economically required, right? We will see products getting faster, better developed, faster produced with technology, and therefore workforce is the highest cost impact factor. You need to look into this to be better on the employee side, and this is not by force. This is not by cost reduction, by retrenchments. This is by developing your workforce and use them rightly. The third element which will help, and I'm sorry if I talk too long, you stop me. The third element is artificial intelligence.
I love it. I just need to write stuff down because I have so many follow-up questions.
The third one is artificial intelligence. We shouldn't be scared. I know Richard David Brecht, the German philosopher, had those horror scenarios where we see like such a tremendous change. Yes, we will see a change. We have roughly about 3.6 billion employees worldwide. There will be 170 million new jobs created, 92 or 95 will be vanishing. Those are direct impacts for people affected, of course, that this is a tremendous change. But in a global scale, it's more like that the entire workforce will change in the way the tools they use. I experience this in HR. It's not only HR data management and obtaining process optimization, but also getting different insights, having different opportunities, not only to speed up, but really getting different information to use to improve further. So this AI will also help, not only to streamline HR and to be more effective and use the resources for something else, but also for demonstrating economic impact and driving business decisions. So I think then the topic of engagement becomes even stronger when you can demonstrate the economic impact of it in all the variations. So those are three trends, I think, which are, to my understanding, certain for the next 5 to 10 years, and we're already walking that path, but it become top priority and must be in all organizations. So if managers hold on to old-fashioned understanding of economy, I think those companies will struggle sooner or later.
Thomas, as I mentioned already, I have so many follow-up questions.
Then I can have a sip of my coffee.
And first of all, I love what you said with regards to a global workforce, since this, of course, also enables people to live or lead a life they really want to lead, rather than being like in a situation where you're afraid of change. But I experienced that in particular people with a very global mindset, they embrace change in a complete different ways, see it much more as an opportunity than as threat and something that they're scared of. You mentioned understanding people is incredibly important, in particular from different cultures. How do you help your team members to understand different cultures? Since we as humans, we very quickly judge instead of like just trying to understand what drives a person's decision.
Different ways. There is hard process related, easy topics like scheduling meetings which are suitable for all people across the world. Be mindful about their time zone. Be mindful about their working ethics. Some people work over weekends, some people in some jurisdictions don't. So this is knowledge sharing you can do, organizational preparation you can take care of. But then there are the soft skills, there are the people. At the end, we're all human. We have kind of human needs. So respect with each other, the way of communicating. There are certain no-goes, sexual harassment, be mindful about your language and so on. But there are also cultural different backgrounds where people come from. And there are intercultural trainings I used at Wipro. We deployed to emphasize and make diversity or create awareness for this diverse approach. We had established diverse groups, so there were platforms for certain ethnic groups, for certain other, like what you call under LGQP. I don't get all the letters always correct in English, but you know what I mean. So getting dedicated groups, getting those platforms, having those kind of events, so that creates a kind of awareness. You can start with local topics, of course, but then also from international perspective. I must also admit, it comes with challenges, of course. Having a leader located somewhere else in the world is not always easy. There are certain, as I said, like cultural differences, which makes it important for leaders to learn and also for employees to understand. And there are also legal restrictions, unfortunately. Some countries operate with employee representations, and some legal frameworks are not flexible for the modern world. So I think country legal restrictions is one barrier, cultural understanding is one, but that's something we can work on as a company. So as I said, like we did trainings, we did those platforms, and in planning you can organize a few things to do the right thing. And now I'm learning about the Chinese Spring Festival, which is the New Year's Eve, end of January. In the Indian environment, we had different learnings, but also some of this we could adopt at the workplace. So it was good also learning from a global perspective, not only locally.
Well, Thomas, you can probably imagine that, well, particularly what you said about employee experience and AI, I'm incredibly curious and very excited to learn your perspective. The economic perspective and the competitive advantage you mentioned. How do you successfully measure employee engagement?
Certainly not by having a 65-page annual survey. This is
I thought everybody loved that.
and best in paper format. No, this is where it came from. There are multiple ways to look at. First, you of course you can run a survey at Amazon. We developed this so much that we had a daily question being asked on all the equipment we used. So we had weekly, monthly. We evaluated on a monthly basis, but the downside on surveys, as good as they are, is you get responses to only questions you ask. So there's a lot of things undetected under this. So despite a survey, the second is in terms of voice mechanism, where you ask reactively about current opportunities for improvement, is open feedback boxes. There is an open communication channel. There's email. There is grievance box. So there's a lot of reactive topics to be addressed as an open feedback opportunity, and not only to questions you ask. Of course, then you can do surveys, roundtables. You can do exit interviews. You can do and look into feedbacks on Kununu, Glassdoor, you name it, those platforms where normally people who only have left the company report, and in general the scoring is rather lower than internal surveys, since positive people probably stay or go and don't necessarily talk bad about the employer. But there's also those data points. So like attendance, like what is your voluntary attrition? Do people vote with their feet and resign? Do people take trainings? This is something where you can measure also in terms of data if things going bad. There are multiple data points, the way of communication, the way of complaints, and so on. But then there's third also, and this is something which most companies not necessarily measure, but what are you doing proactively to ensure that you get the work environment you desire? Now you can have your annual appraisal, and you go and check on your employees and provide feedback, which is also outdated. More like how many one-to-one conversations does the manager has with his employee? How do they follow up on the topics? What tools do we provide to them? How many have a career development plan and plan their career accordingly. How many are embedded into different projects? How many have skip level meetings? So those proactive mechanisms you want to see an organization to do to create this environment, you structurally and by policy align with the management and have this as a vision to make sure that this is happening. This is then also combined with trainings and educating the why. It's not only important that you know what you do, so technically your job, also how you do it, so how you interact with people and how you act as a leader. And the third is the why, that makes people from intrinsic motivation convinced and then automatically doing the right things. And this is also something which is completely missed out, explaining the why. People force never works. So like when companies ask, return to office, we must go, we must work as a team, have no clue how teamwork works. And leader can engage a team even from remote. It's by the leadership and the way how they engage and how they dedicate topics, how they recognize people for their efforts. And if this is needed, companies who have strong leaders would never have an issue getting people meeting each other physically if they understand the reasons why. So this is a trend. I understand there might be some lack of innovation to some extent, but this is not where the people physically sit. This is by how they've been led. So did I answer your question?
Indeed, and I think what's so interesting is that well, people nowadays are empowered to ask these questions, right? So like, okay, if it makes sense, sure, I'll be at the office, but why, right? So if there's a reason, sure, but if there's no reason, okay, why would I then bother?
It's the false understanding that you can force people and then they automatically be productive. Again, it's the way how you lead and how you engage and how you motivate and how you don't have to even motivate. People are motivated from the beginning. Otherwise they wouldn't join, but then you must make sure they're not getting demotivated. But forcing people to meet or sit in the office and doing the same what they could do somewhere else without explaining, without really checking in if this is really beneficial, it's not helpful. COVID has shown us that despite all the tragedy which came with it, that working from remote is possible in so many jobs, which no one thought about is possible before. And now companies who are not strong in their leadership try to revert this back. I think the future will provide the success to those companies who remain the flexible working conditions. There is, of course, need. And I also I'm working from home today, but I also go to the office now and then when it's meaningful, right? I mean, the time is value and we need to use this properly. And I love being in the office, but I also need sometimes the flexibility. And companies who provide those kind of flexibilities, it's not the flexibility itself, it's the understanding of the employees, trying to understand and providing those environments will be more successful in the long run. So totally convinced about this. But I also need to understand that there are three different dimensions I described in my world: globalization of workforce, strong focus on engagement. AI is a technology and game changer in the future. But there's fourth also a kind of work environment which we need to consider. This is sometimes not totally in your charge. Sometimes it is. So, for example, we have a demographic change that will also determine the way how we operate and how we should use resources. We have already a lack of workforce. With AI, we will not get less jobs, we will get more jobs. There will be a higher labor demand worldwide. So we need to even leverage on those people. And they're also bringing a lot of expertise. So work environment determines also the way how we structure and plan our strategy. Demographic change is something which most economies experience, is something you can plan for. There are economic crisis / political crisis you cannot necessarily plan for. But there is also danger I see when we're talking about flexibility, we're talking about global workforce and whatever. There's also a local workforce which cannot necessarily by its shop itself work global. When I ask my bakery or when I go into nursing in a hospital, partially, but normally those are local jobs. So I don't want to neglect this. I think it can split populations, right? There is this highly educated global thinking, very diverse, very empathetic workforce, but you also find maybe sometimes local, which is a risk then for some political directions, right? So again, AI will help. I think the knowledge we gain, the communication around this, the globalization also in social media will help, hopefully, that we overcome those challenges. So I just want to make sure that also at JD we have not only managers, HR, business developers, technology developers. We also have blue-collar workers, right, who are bound locally, and we are talking quite a vision in terms of globalization, right? However, also there it's possible to share some international experience, global projects, some global successes, and so on, so to make them feel also part of a global family. But it's much harder than you and me.
Indeed. Thomas, I was wondering, how do you picture your team HR in general in 5 years' time? What will be the tasks people will focus on?
Yeah, those like for example, in recruiting, right? We have recruiters located across the globe in HR. So not only in the country where we hire, of course, local knowledge is important, but we can also use recruiters across other regions, and technology also already builds in, so searching it and communication, so that will change. So we will adapt to those technologies in 5 years' time, 5 to 10 years' time. We will have people located across the globe in HR, working for global projects, influencing from their different diverse backgrounds to a better outcome globally, and not only local policies and local projects. So language will also now be a longer challenge. We have technologies already available who can convert real lifetime every language. So whether it's Chinese or Spanish or whatever, so there's no barrier in this respect anymore. So very international team in HR working on international projects, but also with some local knowledge for those specialists where needed. And driving those engagement topics, we have the standard HR routine, of course. We will see hiring, life cycle, and some might leave for hopefully less company-related reasons. But during the life cycle, we will use also technology, but also humans for career development, recognition programs, those basic needs. Leadership development remains the main topic. This will not change. I think this is human. So we might use technologies for support, but we will, as humans, also have a key role, pivotal role in driving those programs. Yeah, so international HR supporting international people. I think there is still opportunity for HR to influence business decisions. As I said, using AI, getting stronger, deeper insights in the correlation between human resources, HR people, and business success. I strongly believe that the AI and the data analysis that can run with it will give us new information and also better root cause understanding about certain gaps we might not foresee right now, right? And we come maybe to new conclusions and new programs in the future. Now, like a fashion, everything runs in a certain wave. There was, of course, like the diversity wave. Now there's this wave. I think it's all right, but I think always, and I learned this at Amazon, making a good root cause analysis, understanding what are the key issues. I think AI will help us to be even better on this, and maybe there are some additional programs needed. So I believe in HR has a strong future. HR will play a very important role in the business development from local to global perspective. And I'm interested to see, actually. I'm excited to see. There were always interesting times. There was in the 80s, 90s with the change of a political environment. We have seen new technologies with computers, with internet, and now with AI, and I think it will give us great opportunity.
I totally agree. I totally agree. It's going to be incredibly exciting over the next few years. Thomas, I have one last question for you. Since you have interviewed so many people over the course of your career, now you're working at a company that is growing rapidly, which is already very large in China, however, which grows tremendously also in Europe. What are questions you use to find out whether people fit you personally, fit your team, fit your company?
It's the motivation. I know from the CV and some information you get from LinkedIn and other platforms about the professional background, and you can kind of gather what people have done. I'm not asking technical questions. I ask why people have it, or what drove them, and what they try to achieve. I need to understand their motivation and their vision. If that vision matches what I foresee, the technical skills can be trained. So I'm more interested in what I like to achieve and how to achieve that. And then it becomes more and more detailed. So we're not talking only about visions. I also want to know concrete steps, how they foresee achieving those. But this is much more important than walking through, see what people in the past, and it's often anyway like we did the company that is hard to discover. I'm more interested to see what people burning for, right? And if you ask me about HR, what HR should burn for, and if you want to put it to one singularity of HR, then it's about love people, have a positive mindset, and this gives you the drive to do the right things. The right things will change based on the environment, operate in technologies, etc. But this always is your compass to go the right direction.
Awesome. Thomas, thank you so much. It was great talking to you. I really love what you said with regards to employee engagement and how this impacts the company. And well, I'm absolutely confident that this will also help HR a lot to become even more significant part of the company.
I've been working for 3 or 4 huge companies. I had the privilege to do that, and I've seen it in all 4 companies, based also on hard data, that there is a economic return of invest much higher than you can expect. But there's also the human touch of it, right? We all are humans. We all live in societies, and we all want to do the right thing, and helping each other and doing positive things also is rewarding for all of us. So not only from an economic perspective.
Indeed.
Thank you for allowing thank you for allowing me to share this with you here. I haven't prepared anything. I just spoke with you about this based on my own experience. It might be completely isolated, I don't know, but I am 100% convinced that this is the right way to the future.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Thomas, and thanks to all of you for listening in, and see you next time.